we have today with us, we have actually, I can say we have over 100 registered participants, and that means that there will be people. This is maybe some will be active participants today, but some will also be simply interested in listening in on the recordings and so on in the after the meetings. So, but welcome everyone. My name is Lene Krøll Andersen, and I am the project manager of EOSC-Nordic, and I am affiliated with DIKE here in Denmark. We are very pleased to see all of you, and I can see the number is slowly going up. I would like to put a special guest introduction first here before we start up. We have a special guest with us from Finland, and her name is Raquel Benemergui, if I pronounce it correctly. Welcome, Raquel.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Raquel is a graphic illustrator, and she will enrich us throughout the symposium with her graphical translation of this highly complex topic that we are in. I must say that you are truly a brave woman taking on such a challenge, and we will be curiously following you and your graphical interpretation as we go along. Special welcome to you, Raquel, and good luck. The way we will run the symposium today is that after each presentation, there will be a 5-minute slots if the presenter doesn't go over time. And there will be opportunity to ask questions in plenum. So if you wish to ask a question, you can either raise your virtual hand, or you can simply switch on your video and raise your physical hand. The chat channel is also open throughout the symposium, and this will work as your side track. So here you can chat with your individual colleagues as you prefer, and you can also ask questions in plenum. And all of our speakers and the rest of the EOSC-Nordic Project Management Board will be your dedicated chat moderators, and will try to answer continuously as the symposium runs. And of course, everybody are welcome to chip in on all conversations. The more, the merrier. The symposium is, as you have accepted since you are here, will be recorded and distributed afterwards along with the presentations. We have a very interesting program, but also long in front of us. And if you make it all the way through, I do advise you to reward yourself with half an hour nice and relaxing yoga session, which is scheduled in most of us our lunchtime between 12 and 12:30 CEST. So hang in there as much as you can. But before we start officially, I want to reflect a little bit upon the first year that has now passed by in EOSC-Nordic. 1 year ago, many of us met for the first time at the CSC premises in Finland as new colleagues under the umbrella of NIKE, which is our coordinating organization of EOSC-Nordic. All 24 partners in EOSC-Nordic had identified their people who were to set off and to set in for EOSC-Nordic. That crew of people we sense now is slowly growing itself bigger and bigger. We can see that both via our mailing list and also our list of recipients of our newsletter. And this increase in the EOSC-Nordic staff and stakeholder can mean two things, of course. Either we need more manpower to do the promised job, or EOSC-Nordic is also serving as a competence builder, which within our Nordic and which our Nordic and Baltic colleagues choose to jump on. I hope it's the last one. The team behind EOSC-Nordic sum up to a minimum of 200 people today who are directly involved in the project, which again reaches out to an even larger network. We have a dedicated and very competent EOSC-Nordic team who possess no cross-border or no cross-institutional barriers. And to put it in an infrastructural context, I would say that we work very fair in this word and abbreviations, many meanings. But by being a regional EOSC implementation project also means comprehensive alignment with the other regions in Europe. We cannot have a region going solo or developing its own way of doing EOSC. And at the same time, we are fully aware that there is no such thing as one size fits all. We are not inventing anything new as such, but instead we are building on what we already have in our portfolios and what we have developed, and bringing this forward in a joint future setting where it will create even more value than it is possible for us to create in its present and initial mandated area. This future setting of EOSC is for all of us still unclear and still under construction. However, I will say the elements of a complete EOSC work is working in parallel and with the speed of the country's engagement level. And by that I mean, if you are nationally aligned how to do and how to uptake the elements of EOSC as they come along, you will thereby also be part of forming an EOSC which you understand and can take up once we have a fully operational EOSC. So EOSC Nordic is your regional entry point to EOSC in the Nordic and Baltic region for you to follow and get involved with. We are very pleased to have more people engaged. And today we share with you the first concrete results, tools and overviews of where we are in the Nordics. And at the same time, we are also very proud to be launching our first version of the EOSC Nordic Knowledgehub. And with these words, I will give the word to our first speaker of today's symposium. His name is Damian Lee Carpentier, and he is the EOSC Nordic International Liaison. Damian is also a program director at CSC in Finland. Welcome to you, Damian. And we should remember, if you are unmuted, Damian, you should...
I was muted. I think it's the most common question nowadays with the Zoom meetings. Are you muted? So I've unmuted myself just to, you asked me to give a bit of an overview of where we stand in EOSC and where does EOSC Nordic stand in the overall EOSC. So I'll have just some brief messages about that, just to give maybe a bigger picture. You said it clearly. Do you see my slides okay, or shall I go to the presenting mode?
We see your slides.
It's okay, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so you said it already, Line. When we started this EOSC Nordic, we started with the Nordic countries and then joined our Baltic friends. But we thought we had a case for a coordinated effort on EOSC at the Nordic level, because there are a lot of open science programs already existing in the Nordics, and there is a strong history of research, policy and infrastructure collaboration across the Nordics. So decades of collaboration and integration. And the idea was that, well, if we get together, then we can get some better result than working alone. So this is the concept of the Nordic added value that is quite prominent in Nordic politician discourse. The fact that by joining forces we are stronger. And we also had the idea that well, the Nordics could offer a kind of a test environment for EOSC, with maybe the assumption that if EOSC cannot work in the Nordics, then it's going to be hard to get it flying at the European level. So we believe that we can provide some input, some lessons learned for a successful EOSC. As Line pointed out, we are now more than 200 participants across 10 countries. And if it happens that my slides do not change, just let me know. Although you may not notice it, but I'll try to make it explicit. So now we're looking at the Nordic map with all the partners. That is truly impressive. And so is the objectives of the project and the first results that we have achieved and that you're going to have presented today in terms of policies, legal issues, sustainability, our work on integration and interoperability. And the thing we've done on fair data practices and the mapping at the Nordic level, and the things we've done on the demonstrators to showcase a bit the interest of a cross-border environment for trialing EOSC. Some word on the timeline, because it's also truly impressive. I mean, EOSC is a very fast changing, evolving initiative. It started only 3 to 4 years ago with the European Cloud Initiative, and now we're talking about an EOS partnership. This is a proposal state at the moment, and the an EOS Association, which is an ESBL, and these are the 2 points maybe that I would like to, with which I would like to finish my short introduction, because I think they are important and they show a bit the path that we have taken and the direction we're headed. So in terms of the partnership, those of you who are not so familiar with EC legislation, well, this is a very important milestone because this really concretizes EOSC in the European agenda. European partnership is a collaboration, a formal collaboration between the European Commission and the member states that will agree on a joint program that will be supporting that partnership. So there will be a synchronization of national and European programs. Try to synchronize also funding sources. So that is a big step towards sustainability. And that partnership, I'm changing slide now, has a time frame which is also quite ambitious. And you see there are 3 main periods. The first is to create what we call an EOSC core, or minimum viable EOSC, and that's what we are doing now until 23. Then there is an expansion phase that will start in 2024 with added value services. And then beyond that, we're talking about deploying a web of fair data and related services that will both include work on data and on infrastructure services. So we expect that basically EOSC is flying around 26, 27, at least according to the timeline. That's quite an ambitious timeline, and we can see EOS-Nordic as laying out the foundation for that at the Nordic level. I think that will be clearly demonstrated in this morning's symposium. The other thing that is also a key ingredient for sustainability is the Eos Association, which is being formed and under the form of an ESBL, which is a Belgian legal entity form. A few weeks ago, there were about 80 organizations from 30 countries that have expressed their interest to join the association. I guess now we should be close to 100, 120. So there's also an interest for for joining the governance of EOSC. And I think at the Nordic level, we will have to discuss how we organize ourselves there. Should we have a NAIC as a legal entity, or should we have our individual organizations as members of this ASBL? What are the incentives? What are the costs? So this is the kind of discussion we are going to have in the few weeks. And with that, I'm ending my short introduction, just reminding you that there is an EOS Symposium on the 19th, 22nd of October in the mornings. And I think that's the best place to get up-to-date information about the latest developments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Damian. Are there any, maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions if they are, otherwise we will jump to the next one. Let me see if I see no raised hands. Okay, good. We will jump to the next speaker, who is our Work Package 2 leader in EOSC Nordic. Her name is Stina Avola, and she's also a development manager at CSC. And Stina will give us insight in the Nordic and Baltic status of open science policy, remarks about hindrances in the cross-border transfer of data, and roles and responsibilities in the service delivery chain. Welcome to you, Stina.
Many thanks, Lena. Just a second, I'll share my screen. Okay, yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to be here to present the first year we've had in Work Package 2. My name is Stina Avola, as Lene mentioned. I work for CSC and I lead Work Package 2 in EOSC Nordic. In Work Package 2, we deal with open science policies, with legal issues, and sustainability in a cross-border environment. Today, I will be focusing on the first 3 pillars of our activities, namely the policies and principles, services and resources, and legal challenges. So when we first started a year ago our work, we started by mapping the landscape of open science policies in the Nordics and Baltics. And this report will be published. What we found out is that even when we are very close to each other in the Nordics and Baltics, and many things are harmonized, the stage of development in open science policies is not unified across the countries, and there are different approaches towards the policy making. And also the national responsibilities and structures vary largely. So in some countries, there are the ministries are very active in the policy making. In some countries, we have the research communities, the community involved in policy making. But what is common to all countries is that we all show awareness of the importance of implementation of open science. So in 4 countries in the Nordics and Baltics, we have actually national open science guidelines that are published. And then in some countries where national policies are still missing, some higher education institutions and funders have established open access policies firstly, and to some extent also open data policies. In addition to the desk study, we conducted a quite a large survey that was forwarded to 358 participants in 8 countries. And we received more than 100 responses to the survey. It was mainly targeted to funding bodies, universities, research infrastructures, e-infrastructures, and research institutes. And what we found out in this survey regarding the open science policies is that happily a majority of respondents thought the organization will benefit from the implementation of EOSC. Almost all funding bodies had rules on open access for their grants, and more than half had rules for open research data. Half of the higher education institutions and RIs and e-infrastructures had open access policy as mandatory for all publications, and nearly half had open research data policy mandatory, at least for some grants. Where we found that there is still room for improvement is rules on compliance of data to the FAIR principles. But overall, organizations in different countries have varying approaches towards having informal, some have formal, and some have even publicly available regulations for open research data, data management, FAIR principles, publication of data in repositories. After the mapping, we moved on to a specific area of legal issues in cross-border sharing of data. This we did by interviews, and we chose 4 different projects that we interviewed, and these are actually projects that are used as use cases in EOSC-Nordic in the work package 5. We wanted to illustrate one of the most complex projects, or in this sense, so that we chose two projects where we deal with sensitive data, because this can be regarded as one of the most difficult ones in regard to cross-border sharing. And the report we conducted is the first one of two reports on legal issues. Simultaneously to our work, the working group FAIR has been working on legal issues as well. So we wanted our work to be complementary to their work, and we focused on the researchers' perspective. And what we found out is that there are legal issues, but interestingly, quite often the legislation as such is not always a barrier for cross-border data sharing. For example, GDPR is the same for all, and the purpose of it is to harmonize legislation. Rather, the barriers are quite often legislation related and not legislative as such. For example, some organizations have restrictive policies for cross-border data sharing. This can be due to for example, not being completely sure of what is legal and what is not, and then people tend to usually take a more conservative approach just to be on the safe side. There can be lack of expertise in organizations. For example, international licensing can be really complex and requires very, very specific expertise. There can be lack of guidelines on organizational level, or even contradictory guidelines. So as a conclusion, we can say that a support is needed for tackling these issues. At the same time, as we've been working on the legal issues, we've been working on roles and responsibilities in service delivery chains, examining these. Here we studied 6 different cases, and we chose these on the basis of wanting to have different kinds of projects, and maybe these represents more of the complex side of services in regard to cross-border sharing. But we wanted to, in this case as well, we wanted to illustrate the complexity, to give advice on what kind of things needs to be taken into account when planning or developing EOSC. Well, what we find out is that there is a large variety in roles and responsibilities. And this, as a whole, affects the whole chain of service delivery. When we look at the delivery chain, we need to think of the user community, funding, operations and support, resource type, and the governance. And all these make together an entity that affects each other. So firstly, the target user group influences how the service is delivered and distributed. So when a service is designed, quite often there is a certain user group in mind, and this of course affects the whole design and distribution of the service. Secondly, funding can be provided for a certain target group or purpose in mind. So when services are funded, the funders want to quite often serve a certain group or purpose. In regard to EOSC, where services are supposed to be free at the point of use, we need to think of sustainability of funding, especially in the case of limited resources, such as storage or computing resources. in regard to service operations and support, we also found out that there is a variety of complexity. Some services are operated and supported by a single organization, while as some services have a network of organizations providing operations and support. And even in resource type, there are different things to be thought of. Firstly, the resources differ in how tangible they are. For example, data can be used simultaneously by several users, while as scarce resources are they are not endless in a sense, and this leads to sometimes to competition for the resources, and especially when there is a service that is targeted to a certain group of users. If you widen the user group, you will need to widen the resources as well. And there's a variety of duration of the resource as well. Some are more longer term and some are shorter term. Regarding governance, we found out that in some cases funding parties are the main governance entities, and in some cases the governance is built by a series of agreements that makes the situation a bit more complex. In some cases we have bilateral agreements, and in some cases we have multi-stakeholder agreements. And these can include formal or informal components. Then a few words on the conclusions that can be made out of these findings. Well, as said before, the Nordic and Baltic countries and organizations, we vary in maturity and in approaches towards open science. Regarding the FAIR data principles, there is still room for improvement. And legislation as such is not always a barrier for cross-border data sharing, but quite often it is the administrative practices or lack of expertise, lack of guidelines, and there we need support. And all parties and their responsibilities and even their targets in the delivery chain need to be taken into account when developing EOSC. And quite many of these things come down to the importance of incentives, which can be, of course, varying when talking about researchers, funders. They all have different incentives, and these need to be taken into account. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to reply these now or in chat.
Yes, I don't see any hands, or if we have anybody who want to comment further, perhaps from Work Package 2, you're also welcome to chip in. Otherwise, I think we will say thank you very much to you, Maja-Stina. this definitely calls for much more data stewardship and best and practice on how to do this on site. Thank you very much, Maja-Stina. This was very interesting. Then we will move on to our next speaker, who is the leader of Work Package 3. This is Ilja Levinson from ETAIS in Estonia, where he is also an IT expert for X amount of years. So this we will allow him to reveal if necessary. But Ilja will be talking about breaking the glass wall, delivering Nordic and Baltic research services across the border. Welcome to you, Ilja. And you might be muted.
I am.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that you can see the slides on the full screen. Indeed, I would like to continue the talk in a sense on a very similar topic, and that is how to actually make the services usable across the border. So the Work Package 3 is dealing primarily with the services, and I would like to make a small reminder as to what it was initially, what was the initial hypothesis as to what we should be doing. So we were thinking that as EOSC is seen as being a composition of the existing local and national services, we should make effort on, from one side, integrating the services with the EOSC, on the other hand, achieving a high interoperability to make this kind of interactions easier. And I think it's a common pattern is that when doing so, the first step is to start looking around as to what kind of services we actually have. So the Nordic region and the Nordic Baltic region is relatively small compared to the rest of Europe, and the countries are also relatively similar. So we're not talking maybe so much language commonalities, but in terms of the approach to doing sciences and the openness towards collaboration. So indeed, as Damian mentioned, it would be a nice test ground to see if the EOS can actually work. And it was surprisingly easy to do the discovery of services. So it was very easy to find out the first set of services that are there in each of the countries that can be potentially used across the border. So in that sense, the glass wall is at least transparent, meaning that we can for sure see what the other countries have. So this chart is from the first mapping, which was concentrating primarily on the more mature services from the national service providers and grouped by the categories below. So as you can see, there are services which are represented in all countries, and then some that are more unique to specific countries. Bear in mind that this was just the first initial mapping. We didn't spend too much time on that, so we have some results. From the EOSC perspective, it's important to understand that we are primarily aiming at finding or sharing the more stable and mature services. The maturity of the services is a complicated concept. We have decided to analyze that from several perspectives, starting from the service management. So you can see that in the majority of the cases, the aspects that are defining the service from the service management perspective are relatively present or could be filled in with a limited amount of effort. But if we go, for example, to the more let's say specific aspects like adoption of FAIR principles, we try to do a very high level analysis and just to ask a simple question, whether the FAIR at all has been analyzed or not. And from the service perspective, frankly, the results that you can see also on the slides show that the integration of FAIR with the typical IT services is relatively low. So we still are facing a certain gap in understanding how FAIR and services can be done in an integrated fashion. the issues that Maristina has highlighted, that the services do not always understand what it means to work across the border, is also very vivid. And it's indeed, typically it's not the problem of services per se, it's the way how they have been designed, so to target a specific community. So this actually brings us to the important question. If, as a research community manager, for example, I actually want to use an EOSC service, and the EOSC service is composed of the national services that are typically not designed to work across the border. So how can this work? So this is an example of several of the Nordic services that we have identified. So almost every country, well, not almost every country, has some kind of HPC offering. So HPC is a relatively standard offering, so it would feel that picking a different cluster is the low-hanging fruit. So let's try to make that work. And it turns out that it's actually not so easy, because the first question is that whom do you contact? How do you access the service? So it's separate for each of the service providers, and abstracting that information in order to make the access patterns easier for the researcher is something that for sure we're trying to solve in EOSC Nordic. However, it feels that it's something that the EOSC should deliver as the common practice across all European services. And here I would like to maybe summarize slightly the models that how that can work. Again, this is not something that we can solve purely in VP3, but potentially this is something that we can work on together with the other projects as well as activities. So very roughly, in order to make something happen, there must be a motivation for that to happen and the ability to make that happen. Translating that to the EOSC services, we basically have, not EOSC services, but the research services, we basically see motivation as a mandate or compensation for the usage of the services, or the force to make the services more sustainable. And the ability is essentially the legal or the procedural aspects of doing so. So if that is achieved, then we have a connection and things work. So how to do that? And here I would like to also introduce a slightly different project, which is a kind of sister project to the EOSC Nordic, which is the Lumi Consortium. For those that don't know, it's a project that is part of the EuroHPC, where several countries come together to build a supercomputer that would be later on used as part of the each country's pool of resources. I have highlighted the partners which are also members of the EOSC Nordic. As you can see, the overlap is quite high. So the Lumi model is basically a co-funding model, which brings out a very important aspect. The motivation for sharing there is to pool resources. So putting money together basically allows to get more of the same stuff. And the benefit is that with such a model, there is a very strong motivation to actually use the co-funded one. So in a sense, there is a model which is known to work. The drawback of that model is that, of course, it's quite heavyweight. So it's not easy for small services to be done this way. Also, I mean, Lumi is a big project, so it's essentially, this model is very hard to scale. So we see that EOSC service model, where the service needs to be essentially being compliant with the rules of participation and to follow the EOSC architecture model, is a significantly more scalable one. Now, the critical point is the motivation, which should be coming from the EOSC sustainability model, which is essentially to provide the answer as to why a specific service provider at all should be willing to accept users from beyond. And this is an important aspect, because once this one is solved, I think that the ability part, so the procedures and legal aspects, would move significantly faster. So the benefit of EOSC, as we see, is that it's a highly scalable model that does not incur such an overhead on the service providers. So what are we going to do next in Work Package 3, apart from the supporting the existing services through the Knowledgehub that will be presented later, is that we're going to concentrate on making the services and the service providers more interoperable using the existing European, EOSC interoperability framework, which concentrates on the 4 aspects of the interoperability, so the legal, organizational, semantic, and technical. Of course, within the scope of VP3, we cannot deal with all 4 of them, as we are primarily interested in the semantic and the technical one. However, I think as EOSC-Nordic in total, this is something that we should be spending more time during the next year. Because this actually, I mean, being interoperable on these levels reduces the cost of transactions. So we can do more at the same cost. So to summarize a bit, in order for EOSC to actually deliver the value that was promised, we need to start figuring out how we can go from showing what we have to actually establishing standard protocols of collaborations. And I would like to stop here as well. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ilya. Do we have any questions for Ilya?
Yes, I have one. It is Anna from Sofia University, member of the IIC. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It was quite interesting to watch this and to listen to you. My question, I sent it to everyone, is specifically related to what you have said about the awareness. So when you have this across, breaking the wall across the boards, who is more responsible for following the fair data principle, the provider or the user? I know that both of them are important, but how you can govern this, how you can control this? That's my question.
I can answer you in the way that we had a discussion on this. So one of the suggested principles or guidelines for the interoperability of services is its adoption of the FAIR principles. And this is a question that where that the responsibility will always be on the researcher, so the final user. However, it should be constructed that there are incentives for the services to help out users with that. A data repository that enriches the data that the user has deposited with additional metadata and improves the outcome should be promoted over the ones that essentially are doing just static storage of the data. So integration of FAIR cannot come from a simple answer. So it's very hard to say that only one party is responsible for that. So I think that the answer would be that in order to make the natural integration of services and FAIR principles, there should be a motivation for the researchers to prefer services that support that.
Thank you very much. I would share my personal understanding of this, that there should be interchanging non-stop discussion between both, I mean the providers and the users. Probably you have already heard that research infrastructure, which are on the roadmap of S3, joined in clusters, EOSC, However, the problem of how to share data, which were recorded in a very specific circumstances, following specific rules, and now you open them, you must open them following the new rules. So in my view, it is a process. It cannot be just establishing one bridge and say that's it. It should be flexible, and feedback from both sides are needed. But I do not know exactly how to establish it electronically. Probably you know better than me, but that's a must in my view. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Do we have any other questions? I can also say you are, yes, I see Andreas on, but yeah. You can also always contact everybody of us, or the speakers, if you have questions afterwards as well, definitely. Before I thank you very much, Ilya, for a very nice talk and insight into this services onboarding as well. Before we I release you to the break, we have another special guest with us from the European Commission. This is our officer that keeps us on track in the EOSC-Nordic team. I would like to welcome you, Pilar Ocon, from the European Commission. If you can, yeah, hello, I will give the word to you.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Lene, for this invitation, and thank you, everyone. First of all, I need to apologize because unfortunately I cannot follow the whole symposium as I would like to, but I'm able to join in some parts, so I'm following with a lot of interest the presentations, and after the break I will also be following the presentations, and then I hope that I can get all the PowerPoints and so on, so I can, yeah. I don't want to take a lot of time from this meeting, but maybe I would like to take this opportunity to pass on a couple of messages. First of all, well, so EOS Nordic started in September, and I think that well, when probably the project was getting into full speed, we had the terrible outbreak of coronavirus, and this changed everything in the way we are working and the way that we are able to interact within each other. So I am sure that it has been very challenging to continue the work on the project under these new circumstances. And I want you to thank you and congratulate you for having done so in a way that the activities of the project are not just stopping, but they continue, and that you are, innovating in the way that you are organizing things and meeting and well, yeah. So that's quite. I mean, we have been seeing this with many other projects, and with EOS Nordic, I think it's quite outstanding. And I think that this takes me to my second point, which is that this is like the engagement, networking, and so on. I think it's very important in the context of EOS Nordic, but and any other EOS related project, as you know, you are part of an important part of an ecosystem. The work that EOS Nordic is doing in understanding how to implement the FAIR principles and understand what it means to be EOS ready in your countries, to map the landscape in the countries of the project. It's very important for all the EOS work in general. So I think that it is. I would like to encourage you to be part of to continue being part of the ecosystem, to engage with other projects that are working in, like also in the national coordination, in other countries, to engage with the governance. I am sure that you have all been following the work on the SRI, and that you have hopefully participated in the consultation, but well, it's not the final step, and there's going to be a lot of interactions that will be needed. And as I was saying, I think that the work of EOS Nordic and all the EOS related projects are very important in this whole ecosystem. So voila, thank you for giving me the floor, and I'm looking forward to the next presentations and the next discussions.
Okay, thank you very much, Pilar, for the very kind words, and also for your very nice support throughout the first year. Definitely here, it's been crucial for us. Okay, and with this word, I will release you all for a break. During the break, we will have the meeting room open here, and we will follow the graphical development throughout the break as well. I hope you will also be able to get a break, Raquel. But then I will meet you back here again at 11 o'clock. Okay, see you then. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, again. It's amazing how these drawings are developing. I'm really impressed. It's nice. It's a different perspectives and good. This will be useful also for future communications. I would like to, yes, welcome back everybody from the break. I hope you have now caught yourself a nice cup of coffee or tea and is ready for the final session of this both General Assembly meeting but also EOSC Open Symposium. Our next speaker is Andreas Jørgensen from Nordforsk. Andreas is a senior advisor at Nordforsk and is also the lead of Work Package 4 in EOSC Nordic. And Andreas will be talking about measuring FAIR data in the Nordics and the Baltics. The floor is yours, Andreas, and welcome.
Thank you. So do you see the full screen of the presentation now, or?
Yes.
Hopefully, yeah. Yes, thank you. I'm Andreas Jørgensen. I'm the Work Package 4 FAIR data Work Package leader, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our Work Package has been busy doing in the first year of the EOSC Nordic. I'm employed at the Nordforsk as a special advisor and working for NAIC, and primarily doing the work in this Work Package. So the Work Package 4 consists of about 20 people and from almost all the Nordic and Baltic countries. So we're quite a big team for a relatively medium-sized work package, and we have a very strong expertise collected from a number of these countries, in particular on certification. We also have an involvement from the GoFair Foundation, which we are very happy to have on board. So the EOSC has a vision to provide a common point of access to services, data, publications, and tools. However, as many of us know, open access to data is not nearly enough. So if we take a bigger perspective, the critical premise for research is that it is based on transparency, reproducibility, and trust in the results and ultimately in the scientific method itself. However, a major caveat is that the research data is still today largely inaccessible to others. The data that is accessible or shared is very often not findable, not accessible, not interoperable, or not reusable. The FAIR principles are intended to improve on this. By sharing machine actionable data in accordance to the FAIR principles, we achieve better data discovery, declaration of access restrictions, licenses, provenance, and richer metadata, driving interoperability. What we ultimately want to achieve with this is to have a fully integrated access to research data online with rich metadata and knowledge representation, enabling researchers to pose a detailed scientific query amongst all online data sets across any scientific discipline. And this can be achieved by going FAIR. So in our work package, FAIR data, we have three main tasks. One is which has been the focus of the first year, has been the FAIR uptake, which I will be mostly talking about today. And we have also started the second task, which is on implementation. And we also have the third task, which has not quite started yet, which is on policies and incentives. So in this FAIR, first fair uptake work package, we have conducted a survey of in the Nordic and Baltic region, collecting about 100 repositories. From these repositories, we have extracted identifiers to the data sets. So data repositories, about 100, and about 3/4 of them, or 74 of these repositories, we are able to extract. They support persistent identifiers or identifiers, global unique identifiers, which enable us to select randomly, more or less, more than 700 data sets. And then we run this through an evaluation process, which is fully automated using the included machine actionable metadata that they may contain. And so what are these tests that have been done? So there are 22 of them, and this is a list of the 22 tests. In the highlighted column in red, you see what FAIR principle each of these tests relate to, and a description in the last column. So for each of these data sets, all these 22 tests were checked and by harvesting the metadata and the content of the data set itself. So if we look as humans at a data set, this is typically what it looks like. So it contains a lot of human digestible information, but this is completely incomprehensible to a machine, because the machine doesn't know where the author is or what this data set is about. So to enable that, it requires to contain, the data set also needs to contain metadata that describe these things in a standard and understandable way. And this is what the evaluator is checking. So when we run the evaluator on a data set, we get typically a picture like this, which gives a score of the tests that go within the F metric, the findability, then the accessibility metric, and the interoperability metric, and the reusability metric. And for those that fail, we can check for details and understand what caused the test to fail, or what information was not found. And then we have collected all these scores for more than 1,000 data sets, because for some of the data sets we also used the persistent identifier and not only the URL. And this is what the results look like. So here we have averaged the F, A, I, and R scores into a single average score, what we call the FAIR score. You can see that there are some quantification of these, the typical results that result from the fact that typically if a certain test passes, then a number of other tests also pass, because they are interlinked to some degree. And that's why we see this, that a lot of the results typically end up on about a dozen different values. So looking at the full sample now of 98 repositories that were in the sample, and then the 74 that were evaluated. So why could only 74 be evaluated? So like I said, those could not be evaluated because they don't contain, the repository does not provide a global unique identifier, a pointer, an identifier to each of the data sets. And this is the red column shown here. So that's already a quarter of our sample, which has this problem or missing information. And then looking at the blue column, the blue histogram columns, these are the results of the evaluations of 74 repositories. And if we combine the low and medium score, you quickly see that the very large majority of the sample is either not possible to evaluate, or scores in the low to medium range. Now, it should be noted that there are limitations to what this evaluation tool can be relied on, and this is not to say that the data is not fair, that these repositories that contain these data sets that score low or even medium are not necessarily that they could possibly be fair on many other levels that we do not test. But what we have said in our study is that to us, fair is to score higher on these in this evaluator. And a very small part, 12%, score what we have dubbed more or less somewhat ambiguously a high fair score. So that is sort of a bit of the light in the tunnel, so to speak. So if you look at these scores separately for the F score, the A score, I, and R, we see that there is a relatively large scatter in the findability metric, much less scatter in the accessibility, meaning that typically most data sets score around 40% for the accessibility. While in the interoperability metric, we see that it's a much larger scatter and quite well distributed too. And finally, in the reusability metric, and this is essentially just checking whether a standard license descriptor is provided. The majority do not provide this. So over the course of 2020, we have tested with some intervals, which are not equally spaced, these data sets. We have changed the sample somewhat underway, so that has changed. But what this shows is that the results have changed, but it's primarily due to the fact that the software has changed while we have provided feedback to the developer. But this illustrates what we intend to do for the coming 2 years, which is to continue evaluating these data sets and look for changes and not changing the software code. And then we may find something like this. So for a given epoch, we have measured the FAI and R score in the first row, and in the second row we see that there are some significant changes, and that will be an interesting thing to follow. So every 3 months we intend to do this, repeating the evaluations and looking for hopefully for an improvement in the results of these measurements. And I should add, so this shows the results of all the repositories that we have tested, and so the results of the data sets have here been averaged into FAI and R scores and an averaged FAIR score with error margins. So what we will do in the coming months and year is to provide to offer support events for the communities so that they can improve on and get also advice and guidelines on how to improve and to improve their score and to make their data and repository a more fair according to this evaluator at least. One thing that I wanted to point out with these 3 highlighted repositories is that we do see that repositories that are running on established software platforms or external services, like Figshare in this case, they typically score somewhat better than the average of the entire sample. Recently, we have, so I mentioned this thing that we are started preparing for hackathons. We will host 3 of those in the coming 6 months, or 6 to 10 months, and these will be intended and focused on specific topics and specific tests within the evaluator results. Another topic which will be part of, which has now started and will be a major effort for us in the next year, is FAIR certification. So here we have selected a sample of repositories that we find suitable to and which are not already certified. And then we will adopt the FAIR plus Core Trust Seal recommendation from FAIR on certifying these. And this support that we can provide ranges from self-assessment, guiding on self-assessments, or on guidance on actually performing and running through a full certification process. But this requires a story and the project. So this is what we are doing at the moment. So that was all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Do we have any question? Yes, we have Ingrid Dillo, please. You may unmute yourself and turn on your video.
Thank you very much, Lena. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation, Andreas. I have a couple of questions. So first of all, I very much like this clear overview and these clear results. I do wonder, the sample that you took from the different repositories, of course, is relatively small. So if I look at my own repository, we have 150,000 data sets. So if you take 10, you can have a very low score, but if you take another 10, that might be quite high. So that is a bit of a reservation that I have. I was wondering, did you also look at differences between the domains that the repositories serve in the scoring? Because we do know that the FAIR uptake differs per domain, and if you have around 100 repositories, it would be interesting to hear whether that has led to any conclusions. And the other question that would intrigue me is whether you would see, if you would look at the repositories in your group that already have a Core Trust Seal, does that lead to a higher score in their FAIR data? That would also be, I think, an interesting viewpoint. And then finally, of course, we hope that we will be working together between FAIR and your project and your work package, because we already started creating that support program for repositories to go through certification. So it would be great if we could align our work there. Thanks.
Yeah, just a quick comment or answer to that. Yeah, so we did consider looking at the differences within communities, but found that it's a little hard to sort of, because also we didn't initially separate these repositories in different categories of domains, so to speak, and we felt like that the sample it wouldn't be substantial. Small errors to say something. What we can say a little bit about is that, and this is in the report which is now published on Zenodo, deliverable 4.1 from EOS Nordic, that there is a slightly higher score for those repositories that are certified. It is statistically significant, but it's not a huge amount. And yes, we definitely are willing and actively also working at the moment where we are testing out a new tool, the Fuji Evaluator, and comparing these to our results from the Mark Wilkinson tool.
Thanks for that. Good to hear.
Okay, thank you, Andreas, for a very nice talk, and thank you also, Ingrid, for engaging, making us engage much more with the Færøsphere. This is definitely important that we are aligned here. Okay, this will bring us to our next speaker, who is actually 3 speakers. This is, I will introduce you to our work package leader of work package 5, who is Adil. Adil is affiliated with Sigma 2. Adil will be sharing his talk with Anders Conrad from Dijk, who is one of the work package 5 task leaders. And Anders Conrad is also the head of the data management section here at Dijk. And also Abdul Rahman Asab we have with us, and Abdul Rahman is another task lead in Work Package 5, responsible for the sensitive data part. And Abdul Rahman is situated with University of Oslo in the unit of USIT. So welcome to all 3 of you, and I will give the floor to you, Adil. And then I will check if you are unmuted.
Yes, indeed, you're right. Goodness. Okay, so I hope you can see my slides. Can you see them?
Yes, very well.
Cool. Okay, great. Okay, so yes, as Lena said, we'll split the talk into 3 pieces, because this is a fairly large work package, and there's the details are known by my colleagues. So the work package is tasked with enabling open research across different borders. And in order to try and achieve that, as most of you well know, one needs to be able to find interesting data, and then possibly move that data to convenient locations where it can be processed and analyzed, and then the findings published. There's also an issue, increasingly now an issue, where people that hold sensitive data would also like to be able to collaborate and share knowledge and information and expertise across borders. And that's another area that's another challenge that we're working on in the work package 5. So in order to enable this open research, one of the things that we want to try and do in collaboration with Work Package 3 is to allow the take-up of existing EOSC services, and also to try and find if there are services that communities use, or that we think are would be quite useful for a more wider audience, than those with the help of Work Package 3 and Elia's Merry Band would be able to promote as an EOSC service. So the guys that are involved in, from the user point of view, are in the Nordics and Baltics, and fairly large computing and data users from the climate community, natural language processing, and also biodiversity. So the talk will be split up in finding interesting data will be ably handled by Anders Conrad. The moving data to convenient locations will be me, and processing data and will be Abdul Rahman will handle that, and Abdul Rahman will also handle the challenging topic of sensitive data as well. So with that, I hand it over to Anders Conrad.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'll keep my camera off because I'm on a quite unstable internet connection, rather trying to share my one slide. Oh no, that was the wrong one. No, it was, I believe it was the right one, sorry. So talking very quickly about how you make stuff findable, we are working concretely with a use case about archaeological data. It's a Danish database called Fund og Fortidsminder that is basically containing all registered records about archaeological sites and findings. This is our first use case that we want to make findable, discoverable through the EU DAT B2Find service. So the main people involved here is Aarhus University's archaeology department and the Deutsche Klimarechenzentrum in Hamburg, who is the B2Find operator and also developing the service. So they've been working together. We've had some technical problems, but eventually harvested around 205,000 records, which was our first milestones. And in the moment, we are in the process of trying this in a newer version of B2Find that I think will be released quite shortly, which gives some better opportunities to work around some of the shortcomings or some of the problems we had with the harvesting, because there were some metadata problems in the database. So the next, one of the things we are looking at for the report we're writing is assessment of the scientific value, because we're not doing this just because we can. We want to assess if this is useful for researchers and find out who will use it, and is there something in the data that we should do differently to make it useful. So we're going to bring in a few external people, I believe. We're in contact with Ariadne Plus, who is an archaeology infrastructure, to help us assess. We'll also look at using the FAIR evaluator tool that the work package 4 has just been showing us, with caution, I'd say, because we're well aware that these data were published before there was anything called FAIR, and I also think B2Find was developed before FAIR. So I don't think we should expect all this to happen overnight, but let's see if we can get some input for things we could do better in our harvesting strategy. And finally, this will be for the future, where we'll look to extend with other Nordic repositories, maybe some archaeological ones, because there's a vision for a greater archaeological infrastructure, but also other national or discipline-specific repositories. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, and then I think, Abdul Rahman, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I think.
Wonderful. Cool. So if you do 5.2 and 5.4, and then I'll close up with 5.3 and job done.
Okay, so I do both then. Okay. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, so I guess I have 10 minutes for both. So I'll try to be quick, not much text and more of figures. So 5.2 is analysis and post-processing across borders. And those are the participating partners. And there are 3 main subtasks: cross-border data processing workflows, and code repositories, containerization, this is about tool portability, and platform as a service for scientific cloud computing. So I will focus on the first two tasks. The third tasks, I can answer questions because we are still in the beginning of the collaboration for the third one. There are 3 pilots or use cases for the for 5.2 task. Natural language processing or natural language processing laboratory, NLPL. The user needs are technical wise, easily use NLP software so that the users don't need to install themselves, submitting jobs to different Nordic clusters, and have the same software environment on different Nordic clusters. And also easily package the current environment setup in order to share and make possible replicating the research results. So you have the same environment in different backends. So if we have the users here and backend Nordic clusters, the first model, which is, there are 2 main issues here: how to package the software and make it portable, and the users are able to find it in all clusters. What to use here? So the focus now is using easy build to install different packages on different backend clusters. So this is one way of portability. And then another option which can be used is containers, singularity containers. But the focus of the group now, the technical team and the researcher or the use case recipients, is on easy build. For the job submission from where the users are to where the clusters are, the first option is use SSH and SFTP through SSH. And this is what the users are currently using. So this is the manual way. And what they want to get through EOSC-Nordic is some automation and user-friendly way for submitting jobs. What we are currently investigating is using Arc Compute Element. This is a CERN product, mainly the NordoGrid, for workload management. So on each of the backend cluster, there is an Arc Compute Element. Arc CE is for Arc Compute Element. And this compute element is set up on the local resource management system. And then the users can use the Arc client, the client tool, to submit jobs and to transfer data if needed using either HTTP or Grid FTP. For orchestrating among different clusters, there is the Arc Control Tower orchestrator. And both Arc CE and Arc Control Tower are supported by the Nordic NT1 project. So the current issue now, whether it will be possible to use Arc CE on backend clusters. Arc CE has been used before in Norway, and we are currently in dialogue with CSC to see whether this can be used on the backend clusters that are used by the NLPL users. CSC is already having Arc CE for CERN jobs, but the current negotiations that we are currently having is whether it is possible to have it as a general purpose solution for cross-border jobs. So this is a brief description of the current status. The framework needed to start building the NLP-NL modules is provided here. And there are some scripts to locally test in shared resources created, tested different configuration for basic packages, and created patches for MPI machine learning application like TensorFlow. I would like to give credits to Sabri here from OCTUIO. Then there is the climate change use case, and this is for GU group at UIO. The idea here we are having again, so for all use cases we have backend clusters and we have users. So this is the thing you will find in all use cases for this task. So Nordic clusters, and one or more clusters can be on the cloud. Some of them are bare metal, so you have real machines, queuing system, user accounting. On the cloud, you get virtual machines and you are able to install your own cluster and your own queuing system. And the tools for the climate are mainly packaged in containers and possible to package them in Conda packages. The users of the climate use case, they already decided to use Galaxy portal. They are not going to submit from command line. And Galaxy portal, if you know about this, this is a very large project, which is mainly designed for bioinformatics use cases. But as you see, this has nothing to do with bioinformatics. Now it is used in different scientific use cases. The Galaxy team developed a backend called Pulsar, which is similar to ArcCE in a sense, but of course it works only with Galaxy front end, through which Galaxy portal can submit jobs to a backend cluster using HTTPS. So the job itself and the files are transmitted through Pulsar to the backend cluster. There is in production server, which is a Galaxy flavor in the use Galaxy EU in Freiburg. And this is already submitting jobs to a cluster on the CSCC POTA. And there is a Pulsar there. And there is in progress effort to install a Nordic climate use Galaxy, which would probably called use Galaxy.no, and to submit jobs to cloud resources and to HPC backends. There is an issue that we are trying to find a solution for, is access control and accounting. How would Galaxy users authenticate against the backend HPC, and how Galaxy would perform accounting for GPU and CPU hours? This is actually not trivial, and because Galaxy is a portal and there is user management there, and then the backend cluster has their own access control and user management systems. So option A, which is the most efficient and accurate option, but also the most complex, is to map Galaxy users to HPC users. There are different ways of doing this, and all of them are complex. So we are trying to, we are having a current dialogue with the Puhuri project, whether we'll be able to use their portal for having users that can be both Galaxy users and also mapped to backend HPC users, the same way that they are doing for the Lumi cluster. Another plan B, which is easy but not that accurate. So if the front end PIs, they don't really care much about the accounting, about exactly who is the user who's submitting this job, then we can create back-end project-based users on the HPC clusters or on the cloud. On the cloud, we will not have that problem because the users will own all the clusters, so accounting will not be that much. But if Galaxy can do local accounting, or if the users don't really care about local accounting, so this will be the plan B if plan A did not work. So we are currently trying to get plan A for this issue. The third use case is deep dive or biodiversity. And again, there are the Nordic clusters, which some of them can be cloud. For example, there is a plan now for or ongoing work to use a cloud Slurm cluster on the Swedish, on the SNCC cloud in Sweden, SSC. And the portal is Ploto F. And this is, there is one instance in Estonia. And instead of Pulsar, there is something that they call switches, where the portal decides where you want to submit the jobs, and it uses SSH and SFTP for job submission to different cluster. The ongoing work, sorry, I forgot to mention about the tools. That the tools are packaged in Singularity containers. Most of the tools are now already packaged and tested in Estonia, ITAES, and the ongoing work is to get the back-end clusters ready for getting jobs from Ploto F in other countries. So now we are focusing on the Slurm cluster on SSC cloud, and then to get these tools deployed on these clusters so that the Ploto F users can run jobs in the backend. So this is for task point 5.2. Should we take questions now or after I finish 5.4?
I think we're very short on time, so we...
Okay, so I continue then. I'll try to be more quick. Task 5.4 is sensitive data, and the two subtasks there: cross-border orchestration of sensitive data cloud, and AI and operation procedure. So one is for job orchestration and one for access control for sensitive data. We have the use case, precision medicine use case. This is the driver use case. And I would not mention that much about the scientific value of it. I was planning to, but there is no time for that. The main challenge is to combine data from 3 countries, and Denmark is one of them. In Denmark, data has been imported to the secure cloud. This is computer roam. And in Norway, the other group is using the Hunt cloud. And the main challenge is to get the needed permissions to use the data, but this is already in progress. Data source from Decode Genetics, and the 3 options is encrypted hard disk or special commercial tool for filtered data importing. And this is how they imported data into computer roam. This, as I understood from the technical team, this is already working there. So the problem of importing data to secure cloud of computer roam is solved, and the importing of data is ongoing, and the format of data is imaging data. There is another solution, SFTP Beamer, that has been developed in the Trigva project, and this is another option for simple data transfer if the actual approvals are in place. The current locations is Hunt Cloud in Norway and Computer Room Secure Cloud. The cross-border data processing, there are 2 options. If there are agreements in place, the data ownership agreement or data transfer agreement, whatever the name, according to GDPR and the local legislation, then data can be moved. If there is no such, then there is another option of streaming data from X to Y or Y to X. And this is how we have this block diagram. So we have data in computer room. The red here, it means the firewall, because this is sensitive data repository, and then the Hunt Cloud in Norway, Trondheim. And the tools can be either Docker container, Singularity container, or Conda packages. And SFTP beamer might be used if we can do data transfer. So this is about the precision medicine use case, and about the federation or the AAI work. There is a nice ongoing work for implementing JWT token. JWT token is JSON Web Token that includes the user's information and the user's capability. So who are you and what can you do? Can you import data? Can you export data? Can you submit a job? Can you use this service, that service in the sensitive data back end? So if we have a user in one place, for example, TSD in Norway gets a token that defines who is the user. The user can take the same token to another sensitive data service provider, let's say SNCC, and Super is the user management system there. Then Super, if they trust TSD, then they generate automatically a user in Super for this person. Using this, based on this user, this person or PI can access Bianca, for example, which is another sensitive data HPC. No manual process of applying for a user and registering and getting sending a copy of the passport, etc. No, just based on this token, you get a user there. And this is step number one. Step number two is to get a token also from Super to be able to access the system without interactive access. So when you access the system, you include your username, password, and one-time code. This is for interactive login. There is another way of just using the token for being able to run things from the application. If this is implemented, then we will be able to have federated access between the sensitive data systems in the Nordics. And this work is in collaboration with the TRIGFA project.
Cool. Thank you very much, Abdulrahman. There's a lot to fit in a very short period of time. So, right, so I will try and conclude 3 slides in, shoot, my fingers. Not working. 3 slides in less than 1 minute. All right. So just to summarize, then the problem we're trying to solve is fairly simple. Somebody wants to do some analysis. They got data in one place, data in another place. They need to assemble it, create some jobs, and run those jobs. All very well and good when you're in one site. But then when we start to move to different countries, there's a whole load of questions that appear, as Abdulrahman and Anders have pointed out, all of which we need to try and address. Some of them in task 5.2, some of them in task 5.3. What we would like to do in 5.3 is to try and capture some of this information about how these jobs were assembled and where they're running in the data management plan, and in addition to use the data management plan to try and drive that process as well. And the orchestration is something else that we're looking at. So this little box of the orchestrator, as with everything else in a distributed environment, is not simple. It turns into this rather hideous collection of elements, all of which need to work together in order to be able to assemble the jobs into units and run those units at the various sites. So I think with that I will stop, and I think one thing that I would like to say is that regardless of whether the EOSC is a success or not, I think for me the biggest success is the collaboration between the service providers and the user communities, which I hope will continue beyond EOSC, and I think is probably captured in the WP6.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for those words and insights into the real world. Actually, this is in Work Package 5. This is where you actually demonstrate in real life how these services work. So thank you very much, Adil, Anas, and Abdul Rahman. The A team, I think I will call you from now on here. You are all A's. But with that, we are running a bit late, but we will now move to the final speaker of the Eos Symposium. This is Mina Lapalinen from CSC in Finland. Mina is the lead of Work Package 6, and she's also the Director of Brand Management and Marketing and Communication at CSC. And she will be launching now the EOSC-Nordic Knowledgehub first version. Welcome to you, Mina. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I hope that my voice is fine. Okay. One moment, I will start sharing. Where is it now? Okay, so we are really proud today to launch the new web portal for our website, and it's called Knowledgehub, and it is built for the variety of stakeholders. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So so we have had already earlier our website, and that the main site of that website is still to act as a general information channel of the project and the activities. And the Knowledgehub then is a service site for users and stakeholders. And we have tried to create a user-friendly service path, which can create a very positive user experience. So that we have really formulated all our solutions and information so that it is really targeted for these users and different stakeholder groups. And we hope that these services and topics, they are easy to find and use, and there is also a support available. And then this is really a joint venture with all the work packages, so that we are all working together in this, and so it combines all the efforts and results that all the work package are achieving. And then we have a lot of different kind of tools which we are using here also. So we have a services tool. Then we have a competence tool which shows about competencies. Then we have a help desk, and then we have like a wiki where is the FAQs, and then we have, of course, all this information that we are creating in this project. And this is really a beta version of the Knowledgehub. And so we have now some content in it, but it will be developed further when we move on with the project. And we, of course, we take what is happening in EOSC and in this project, we take that all in there. So, and now you can find this, now it's open there in our website, and you can find it there. And now I will try to move in different, one moment, here. So here, so this is a new part in here in the website, and we have gathered this information in these 6 parts. And so we have the material section, and there you can find all the key documents of the project. And I try to open it here. So, and then it's also tried to be as easy to use as possible, so that you can use different kind of tags concerning the topics or stakeholder or keywords. And here are also now, for example, our deliverables being able to found there. And then we have this users and organizations section. And here we tell what EOS Nordic offers for different kind of stakeholders. And we have divided these groups to these categories. And then, for example, if you look here, so then we tell about the benefits, and why to choose, and then also there is a further information. And then we have a training library, and that contains all sorts of training materials that we have. And there is a date when this training has been had, and what kind of media it is. And then we have a services section, and this is about the services which are available, and also for the researchers, and also a guidance how to register the service. And here there is for the researcher about these services. And as there was shown earlier already, here let's see how quickly it goes. So here we will show these Nordic e-infrastructure services. And then I go back. I hope that it goes fine. And then here is for the service provider that how to register their own service, and this information will be updated here later more. But and now this moves to this other tool, this Atlassian customer service, which is maintained with the work package 3. And then we will also later have the dashboard, which shows about the status of the EOSC services. And that will be launched later, so in the beginning of next year. But there is also some information about that. And then we have a support function here also. And here we have different FIQs for these stakeholder groups. And also you can send a request via service desk. And you can also here choose which kind of information you are interested in. And for example, so that I have a generic question, so I just put my question here and send it, and then there will be it will be answered by the right kind of expert. Then I will go back. And then we have also this community section, and this is about the EOS community, so that you can connect with your peers and also learn from each others. And here we have so this is we promise that this is for the peer learning, competence sharing, and exchanging experiences. So we have here this one other tool. This is a competence map. And here you can, for example, look for this expert. So then it shows that here are experts, but please go and have a look then later. And then we have also the upcoming events here, and also the other EOS community, so that we have collected information of the different projects here. Then there is still two nice features. There is this question mark. So this is the gadget, so that it also goes to the, if I put here, for example, fair. So then there is also the information, and also so that you can contact to the service desk. And then we have one more. So this is because this is a Knowledgehub, and it's about the competence sharing and sharing information. So we offer here also the possibility to contribute, so that if there is something that would add value for this community, so then you can share your news or event or study with us. So this is about it, and I wish that you will get to know what kind of things we have there, and we will soon, in a few weeks, we will send a special newsletter about this Knowledgehub, and there will be also a survey. And so we'd like to know your feedback, and because this is really just the first version of the Knowledgehub, and we hope to get the feedback that how does it feel, and how do you find it out that if the information is good, and what we would be able to add there. And I think that my time is up. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Mina. Definitely, this is we are very proud to launch this very first version, as Mina says, and it's a joint venture here, and so we need all your contributions, and it's not a centralized platform. That's definitely important to state. It's so if you have important links and platforms to interlink, please let us know and push the contribute button, and then we will get in touch with you and figure out how we do it in the right way. Thank you very much. And then I would like to say we have now come to the end for some, and for some it may continue for half an hour more, because there is a surprise and a reward for you that feel like this is something that you would like to do. But first, before we go to that, I would like to thank all participants, and I can see the chat room is definitely working fine, and there will be replies coming up soon, and also in the materials. So thank you to all participants for listening in, and thank you to the whole EOSC-Nordic team for making it through the first year, and for presenting these initial results after this first year. Thank you also very much for the technical team behind this, taking us through properly without any technical breakdowns. So I guess at least not from this view, but thank you very much for that. It's always a challenge. And by that, I want to give the word back to you, Mina, and let you introduce the final part. And then that would be a goodbye from me here.
Okay, thank you, Lene. And so, because we were talking earlier about the contribute, so we from CSC, we want to contribute to this project also. We had an internal event a few weeks ago, and then we had a nice yoga session there, and we are now all very we are always just sitting in these two meetings, and we need also something nice, and so I hope that this yoga session. It is really recorded a few weeks ago in Helsinki. And I hope that it will give you nice tips how to stay fresh during these days, long days with Zoom, and also gives you a lot of new energy and also relaxation. So enjoy.